Hope I'm loud and clear.
You are, Priya.
Sharad, can you confirm? Perfect. Thank you, Sharad. So to quickly hand it over to Sharad, my colleague and my best friend here. Sharad needs no introduction. He's the head of global head of pre-sales for Sectrio. He's someone who has seen, cybersecurity, OT cybersecurity up close, and also has worked on many deployments and seen, or rather, collaborated with many enterprises to sort of elevate the security posture. And he's really experienced, and he's got hands-on sort of expertise on both these topics, which is microsegmentation and zero trust security. You can call him an architect as far as trust security is concerned, because his in-depth knowledge really spans every single topic which comes under the umbrella of zero trust as such. So thank you, Sharad, for joining us, and thank you, Archana. So without further ado, over to you, Sharad.
Thank you so much, Prayut, and welcome all of you to this webinar on microsegmentation and zero trust, holistic approach for OT cybersecurity. So Chinna, Prayut and me, we're part of a company called Subex and a division called Sectrio within Subex. Sectrio has the broadest range of IT, ICS, and IoT security solutions and services. We have built different modules completely in-house to cater to vulnerability management, which allows you to discover assets, uncover vulnerabilities, and also uncover what is the network topology and what are the communication patterns within an OT network. On top of that, we've also added a very robust and a matured threat management module, which caters to monitoring of threats 24/7, 365. It acts as a network intrusion detection solution. And we also have solutions to cater to microsegmentation, which I'll be diving deeper into today on what are the use cases and how an integrated solution would help in building zero trust architecture. And we also have a secure remote access solution where we integrate with a solution to provide any kind of authenticated and authorized access from external to internal, or anybody from within your plant or your substation or your pipeline trying to access systems within the network itself. So all of that is part of a very comprehensive suite called the Sectrio suite, which comes with threat intelligence, vulnerability management, threat management, microsegmentation, and secure remote access, with an add-on module called the decoy and deception module. So we've been in business and matured in this space for the last 5.5, 6 years. And we have seen different customers in different industry verticals implementing solutions, and also taking our services when it comes to risk assessment, gap analysis, network architecture review, and also OT SOC as a managed service as well. So we have global support centers. We have support centers in Denver, Colorado. One which is very new, which you don't see on the map here, is Mexico as well. And we have support centers in London, Dubai, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Singapore. And on top of that, we have built a very, very, very diverse and localized or industry specific threat intelligence as well. We gather this threat intelligence from honeypots, which are deployed in 70 plus cities around the world. Today, as we speak, we monitor more than 10 million devices and protect them from cyber attacks. And we have one integrated solution provider where we have services and products to help with discovering of assets, mitigation of risks that are associated with the assets, detection of threats on the network, and also playbooks to help remediate those threats as well. So this is a quick introduction about Sectrio. And what we have built over the years is what we are trying to represent in mostly an amalgamated view of NIST CSF and what we think is a very comprehensive OT architecture. So we have our entire solution suite built around visibility and threat management. To predict threats, the vulnerability management module becomes very handy, where it baselines the network traffic pattern, and it brings up a list of all the asset inventory in your OT, IT, and IoT network, and also provides a risk scoring as well, which helps you predict what could go wrong. And the vulnerability management module has a specific impacted asset screen, which calls out even the recommended mitigation actions, either recommended by our zero-day lab or recommended by our OEM partners as well. Second is, after you've predicted what are the things that could go wrong, that is vulnerabilities that can be exploited, how do we prevent it? So we have built modules which cater to network access control and microsegmentation. We have a module which we integrate with for secure remote access. We have a built our own decoy and deception solution, which is very effective in creating lures, creating breadcrumbs, creating decoys, or an entire deception mechanism to engage attackers and find out what they're doing within the network. We also call it as a shadow honeypot module. And one of our most matured module is also the intrusion detection, or the network intrusion detection module, which helps with behavioral monitoring, detection of known threats using signatures and heuristics, and detection of unknown threats or 0 days using our anomaly detection layer as well. And we have in-house experts who have studied different standards or regulations like IEC 62443, NUCSIP, or it can be NCA OTCC, or very specific country specific or region specific policies as well. And they come in and provide their consulting expertise to solution the whole zero trust architecture as well, by creating compliance checklists, which actually adhere to global and local mandates, and also building zones and building conduits, which are recommended by IC 62443 as well. And finally, how to respond when there is an attack. So we have our own managed OT SOC service, which is all these solutions with other integrated solutions like SIEM or firewall management, and ACL management, or even a NAC management. All of that is bundled into the OT SOC service, and we build very specific incident response plans based on the industry vertical. And we also take MITRE ATT&CK enterprise and MITRE ATT&CK ICS into consideration, and build a complete adaptive response mechanism to monitor your network 24/7, 365, and reduce the mean time to detection, and also the mean time to respond as well. So this is a quick overview of our security suite. We have the EdgeTech appliance, or what is popularly known as the sensor as well, which does all the packet inspection, does all the log aggregation, and once it does the packet inspection, log aggregation, applies the signatures, heuristics, and the anomaly detection mechanisms, it reports all the vulnerabilities to the vulnerability management module, all the threats to the threat management module, and also acts as an integrated module to provide you full flexibility to divide your physical network into separate virtual zones and build secure conduits using the micro segmentation module. And also, once you have identified the critical assets and the type of access that has to be allowed to those assets, you can activate the secure remote access module as well, which allows authenticated or authorized access, completely monitored with pixel recording as well, which allows you to baseline basically assign what are the users who are supposed to access certain machines, and also help with uh, access control from external to internal and internal access control as well. But apart from this, we have services that we offer. So we are a full turnkey solution provider. We offer services in risk assessment, gap analysis, OT penetration testing, OT threat modeling, attack path analysis for your OT infrastructure, any kind of audit or compliance that you have to meet, and you want the security team consulting experts to work on that. We do offer that as a service as well. And OT managed SOC services, the OT only SOC that we have, which provides OT SOC services to many of our customers worldwide. So today we will be talking about two very, very specific topics, which are really important in building a very strong OT cybersecurity program, microsegmentation using zero trust, and how the different solutions, that is the intrusion detection solution, the secure remote access solution, and the microsegmentation solution can work together to build where we can build a complete architecture, multi-layered protection for your OT infrastructure to combat against the new age cyber attacks, which are targeting OT infrastructure. So let's just take an oil and gas pipeline landscape, right? I just wanted to bring this up so that every one of us understand the complication of bringing in multi-layered security or a zero trust architecture within an OT environment. So if we take a pipeline infrastructure, and if we take the Colonial Pipeline attack scenario, right, which could not enter the OT infrastructure per se, but if it had entered, what problems could it have led to, right? In a pipeline infrastructure, you have the compressor station, which has different operational applications, multi-service applications, and you have the block wall stations, which has the fire and gas systems, or process CCTV systems, or the video surveillance system. Then you have the metering stations, which basically have again, the fire and gas, CCTV, and the video surveillance. And these are mainly, it's called as the non-SCADA OT infrastructure. And this has a unique characteristic to it. They are connected to and they're geographically distributed, and there are and it can be geographically distributed for miles together across different states or different regions in a specific country. And they connect back to the main control center and the backup control center, which runs all the SCADA. And connectivity is provided through MPLS, and or it can be a telecom lease line. And there is a data center which basically has all the applications for patch management, applications for like a jump server for remote access, many other applications which run in the main control center and the backup control center. Now, if we look at what could be the different problems if we don't have a very secured architecture, multi-layered zero trust architecture, there can be web crawl. I'm just giving a few examples. So there can be web crawlers which exist as part of the machines which are running certain applications on maybe an SMB protocol, and there can be vulnerable softwares not updated because of maybe like downtime issues. If we don't have a downtime, we cannot update the software running on an older version might be vulnerable to attacks. Or there can be CCTV cameras which have been installed years ago, and the um, CCTV cameras have not been upgraded. So these can also bring in threats, and especially if these are connected to a central server for any kind of remote monitoring of the process against safety hazards or fire hazards and things like that. So if they're connected to a central machine, there can be new IoT threats which can also come in. And if there is a access which is given to OEM, and if the OEM machine is already compromised, there can be a malware which gets downloaded into any of the systems. So these are just a few examples. On top of it, the entire OT landscape, very similarly, you can take manufacturing or critical utilities, can have certain critical vulnerabilities or end of life assets as well. And upgrading end of life assets, easier said than done. You cannot do it immediately because of the big capex investment that would be required, or it can be the whole mechanism. Like, for example, if you're doing an RTU upgrade on a specific pipeline, as we are speaking about pipelines, it's not an easy task, right? You need to make sure that all the RTUs are like there's a factory acceptance test, and then there is a site acceptance test that goes on, connectivity to SCADA. A lot of these OT machines have to be compatible, applications have to be compatible with each other. And we need to make sure that these are tested in a sandbox environment and then implemented. So updating end of life assets is not that easy. So all this brings in a few very specific use cases, right? The one is having an architecture wherein you have the network itself segmented into different zones, and these zones can be either by geographical region, or these zones can be very specific as virtual networks within the compressor station, within the block wall station, or within the metering station itself. And these can be achieved through firewalls, by installing different firewalls at different levels, or it can be also achieved through using a very OT compatible network access control and a micro segmentation solution as well. And together with that, if you have the right technologies, like the right uh, intrusion detection solution like the Secure Suite, or and the secure remote access solution, you can build a really good zero trust architecture where you're um, monitoring all the uh, people accessing, monitoring all the machines talking to each other, and also creating secure zones by having specific assets put into certain zones with stricter policies and specific user-based policies which can be implemented in the NAC, which allows only authenticated users to access these critical machines or crown jewels. So all of this can be done, and that is what I'll be speaking in the coming slides as well. So network segmentation and zero trust architecture, right? To give you a high level overview of how microsegmentation technology works in an ICS or a SCADA or an OT infrastructure. First thing is segmentation, right? The first step of implementing microsegmentation in an ICS environment is to divide the physical network into smaller virtual segments or virtual zones, and then having a access control policy where once the network is segmented, once the you know what are the conduits that need to be built between the network segments, and you know what are the specific types of users. It need not be user A or user B, but it can be a user with specific privileges, which can be built into a policy, and you define that access control to a specific segment. In any scenario, it can be a manufacturing plant or a electrical utility company, or even a pipeline for that matter. And having the solution, the micro segmentation solution, connecting back to the firewalls as well, right? Wherein firewall is doing the monitoring for the IDS, and the firewall is doing the monitoring for all the ingress and egress traffic between different levels. And the micro segmentation solution is looking for any traffic which is moving laterally, that is east west traffic. And having um, on top of this, having the monitoring, auditing, and the continuous improvement. So solution once implemented cannot be left as is. The attackers are getting smarter, so we need to make sure that we keep reviewing these access controls, and making sure that they're working as intended, and also updating them on a regular basis, uh, to make sure that there are enough measures taken um, to stay up to date on the emerging threats. And these emerging threats are something that we will be able to recognize from, say, the threat intelligence that we collect from our honeypots, or even the attack path analysis that we do, and the attack technique analysis that we do, using different um, taking different APT groups into consideration, and the different types of notorious attacks that they're doing across different industry segments as well. And when you bring in zero trust into the whole network micro segmentation module, you need to make sure that there is enough device and user authentication. So the NAC, or the network access control module, and the secure remote access module will help in achieving this. And then there is access control policies which can be set as part of the micro segmentation module, and you can have the same policies being monitored in the secure remote access module. And so you can define what specific users can access these micro segments, and what type of communication can happen. You can even define the file size for file transfer, file type limits, protocols which can be whitelisted, and you can analyze the protocol as and when there's communication happening using continuous monitoring. So you can have the NAC working really well with the security intrusion detection solution for continuous monitoring of network traffic. And it can detect anomalous behavior. It can detect deviation from baselines which are already set as part of the secure remote access or the vulnerability management module. And these baselines can be used to detect any anomalous behavior, or any change in access behavior. All of that can also be done. And the network micro segmentation can also be like, you can restrict a specific access type. You can restrict it by time, restrict it by location from where the user is accessing a specific asset within your OT infrastructure. So all of this can be built into the whole zero trust model, which can overlay your network micro segmentation module itself. And then the magic happens when you integrate the IDS, the NAC, and the SRA together, right? Some ways, which, like I mentioned on the previous slide, detection of anomalous behavior. So the IDS can detect any kind of anomalous behavior. It will take the baseline from the vulnerability management module, which is making the asset list. It's building the asset topology, and it's also building like specific services or ports that are open as part of an asset. And the SRA, or the secure remote access module, allows the user to access that specific asset in a secured manner, user-based authentication, MAC-based or IP-based authentication, all of that can be set. And then when the IDS integrates with the NAC, all the policies can be controlled so that you build these secure conduits. Protocol level controls can also be built in, and also you can set up access control criteria. And when integrated with a secure remote access solution, the IDS can be uh, even further improved, wherein any change in remote access connections can automatically be alerted to the SOC, and we can track back as to what was the um, file transfer, or what was the actions that were taken, may it be a configuration change. There are recordings that are saved in the database which can be retrieved, and you can see the what the user has done and how that has breached the baseline when it comes to the secure remote access as well. So the microsegmentation solution that Sectrio has built basically allows you to manage access, prevent any kind of unauthorized access, detect any lateral communications which are not authorized, and report it as part of the Sectrio Hub, which gives a complete view on what is the impacted asset, what is the type of lateral communication that has happened, and a history of events which led to that lateral communication also can be tracked using the microsegmentation module. And uh, it also provides a very comprehensive endpoint enforcement together with the secure remote access. So it improves your entire like the technique that we are also using as part of the microsegmentation module is, you all know that there are ARP tables. So these we have a command and control center built into the microsegmentation module, which can override the ARP communication rules, right? And it can also create a virtual network, and you can also change the actual MAC to IP communication as well without impacting any original settings or original communication which is set up by the OEM already. So you're adding a layer on top just to make sure that the attacker is not sure of the actual asset which is trying to access while performing that attack. And the microsegmentation module also helps with addressing any kind of wireless LAN security issues. Of course, it helps in preventing data breaches, and if there are unpatched endpoints because of various reasons, you can build a policy where you put all these critical assets into a specific zone, and you can restrict access by whitelisting the users, whitelisting the protocol, and you can analyze what kind of communication is going on as well. So just to give you a scenario of an on-prem deployment of our NAC and the policy server, right, where the Sectrio Hub itself will be hosted on the customer data center. You require like basically no changes to the network environment itself, and the configurations that are required are very easy. It's like a one-click configuration, and then you can actually. This is a truly vendor-agnostic solution, so no dependency on the network itself. We can deploy a server or a sensor in less than 10 minutes, and within a few days, you can establish a connection to the central policy server as well. And we do support virtual environments where it can be deployed also. So what we're basically doing is we are taking the traffic from the network switch using a trunk port, and we do on our sensors do a layer 2 ARP enforcement, and with that, we are able to um, manage all the user based, the Mac based, and the IP based policies, which allows only secured communication to happen, and also look at the east west communication as well. So if we take this as a typical OT architecture, right, and if we take this as a physical OT architecture where you have the process, you have the basic controls, you have the SCADA, which does all the supervisory work, and you have the operations, which where you have different kinds of SIM or intrusion prevention solution installed, Active Directory, network monitoring solution, or AV or an SCCM server, all of this installed. And then there is, um, uh, so the operations and the control and the DMZ have a very thin line. Sometimes some of these servers are also part of the OT DMZ. And that is where you have all the patch management servers. And then you maintain the backup server or the main secure remote access either in the DMZ or in level 4 as well. So if we take this as a typical OT architecture, it can differ from site to site, industry to industry. But how we can divide this physical architecture is into these virtual um, virtual networks, right? You can have a separate virtual network for the basic control systems. That is, you can have all the PLCs put into one virtual network. You can put all the RTUs into one. I'm just giving an example here. HMIs and SCADA into one zone, and you can have all the backup servers, the critical data servers holding the historian data into a specific zone, and the OT firewalls, the Active Directory, network monitoring, all those can be built into separate zones as well. But all of this traffic, which is moving in and out, can move through the secure NAC. So we, from the switch, we take trunk port, and we are able to send all the traffic through a pipe with the secure NAC, and the secure NAC basically does all the magic, access the command and control, which is not allowing the attacker to know the actual assets below it, right? So I'll be happy to explain deeper about the solution, but yeah, this is one of the ways that we are implementing micro segmentation and implementing all the different solutions like the Sectrio IDS, the secure remote access, all of that in different layers, and achieving the whole zero trust architecture. Just to give you a use case, again, if there's a server from which we are trying to access another server, which is running a telnet service, we can have asset-based policies that are set up where we can set up segmentation rules to block any telnet from specific like server 1 to server 2. Very basic example, but this is something that we can achieve using the micro segmentation module, or even during an RDP, like using the secure remote access solution and the micro segmentation solution, you'll be able to uh, give remote access to a specific user from external to internal, wherein user-based policies can be set up, where group users can be set up, where only users from using a specific IP address, or a user using a specific machine which has a whitelisted MAC address, or we can have an integration with AD for any authentication checks as well. So these are some of the policies that can be set up, and you can add and remove users, or add or remove user groups as well. So these are very basic use cases that we can meet, but there are much useful use cases for OT machines, wherein who can remotely access a specific PLC, and if there are any kind of changes that have to be made on the PLC, what duration that we allow the changes to happen, what specific users, all of that can be set up using a combination of our secure remote access and our micro segmentation solution. So what does a successful microsegmentation solution have, right? Like a successful OT microsegmentation implementation basically should contain different, all these different things. First of all, the OT sponsor or the OT security sponsor should have a very clear objective on why microsegmentation would be important. And also, there can be a lot of resistance from the OEMs on whether microsegmentation will impact the operations, and because they have signed up for an SLA, and will the system bring down the OEM related things. But uh, these are all the resistances that are built, but microsegmentation can clearly be built without impacting the existing infrastructure. So you will have to first identify what are the crown jewels, and what are the specific OT assets that have to be protected, really protected, versus um, assets with medium, like if compromised, medium impact, and if compromised, low impact. So crown jewels, medium impact assets, and low impact assets. So we need to clearly segregate that, and use a vulnerability management solution which can discover the assets, recognize these crown jewels, recognize the communication patterns, all of that, and need to also ascertain what are the level of access that is required for each of these. We give read only access to a specific users, read and write access to specific users. So all of these have to be clearly documented. And if there are vulnerabilities, what are the potential threats? So using intrusion detection solution of secure, you can also do attack path analysis. You can given a specific vulnerability, given a specific score, may be a score for finding out what is the severity of that vulnerability, or even a score which can actually maybe a CWE or a CAPEC, or a score which can even tell you what is the possibility of an exploit on a particular asset given a vulnerability, right? So this is something that the Sectrio vulnerability management module brings in. And after that, you obviously need a detailed mapping of the network, which is built in the network topology that the Sectrio vulnerability management provides. It not only provides a simple asset to asset communication, but it also gives your view of how the assets are connected, in like if you're trying to segregate it on Purdue, how is it connected? And also the whole, like if there is a complete LAN network that you have, we build a topology based on what we see on your network, so that it clearly calls out what assets are part of what specific segments which you've already defined as part of the network. That would be important. And then identification of network traffic, which how is the traffic flowing, what is the protocol that is being used, what are the applications talking to each other, how much data is being transmitted, and all of this is baseline. And this becomes very important for both the secure remote access and also for the network microsegmentation strategy that you will be building. Once you have mapped the assets, once you have mapped the communication pattern, and once you have mapped the built the network topology, then coming up with or determining secure zones, the virtual zones which these assets can be put into, what kind of access controls should be set up, and also on top of that, what kind of security policies needs to be implemented. So all of that also is important when you're building the micro segmentation strategy. And then a comprehensive plan, right? So it's not a plan just to implement it once, but having a plan which is staged as well. So wherein you have zones and conduits built for specific parts of your network, and then slowly you improve on it and develop a very comprehensive implementation plan in different phases to make the entire micro segmentation strategy that you set up a success. And then ongoing testing and validation. So this becomes very important because all your pieces, that is the intrusion detection, the secure remote access, the decoy and deception, or even the micro segmentation, all of these have to work together really well, so that even if the attacker is able to get through one level, you're able to detect that specific type of attacks at different gates that you've put within the network itself. And this can only be achieved when you have, of course, solution can do wonders. We have the great mix which can give you, which can reduce that dwell time of the attacker within the network, and sometimes move the attacker into a decoy zone or a deception zone, which is part of our decoy and deception module. But what we have also built is the tool can automate certain playbooks as well, but there needs to be people who are experienced enough to look at these microsegmentation implementation on a regular basis, or this whole integrated environment or the architecture that you're trying to build on a regular basis, and making sure that the uh, policies that you've set up, are they still, do they still hold good with the latest vulnerabilities that have been identified? And if there is a patch update, is that patch applied properly? So all of that is something that an operations team with OT cybersecurity experts have to be part of that team, and that is what a secretary can also bring in with ongoing monitoring and maintenance of the micro segmentation strategy that you've built using the managed SOC service that we provide. So the vulnerability management module, like I said, identifies and mitigates the risk. It is continuously discovering new assets. So it does a baseline, and then it comes with all the asset intelligence, which gives you 100%, or if not 199.9% asset transparency. We use both passive methods and wherever it's allowed, smart probed, controlled active methods to find out what are the assets which are connected, and also baseline the network. And then the network topology is built, and this is what helps the screen here, which you can see, helps with recognizing the type of device, the type of communication, and based on specific characteristics of the asset, can be put into specific zones, and policies can be set up um, for those assets by uh, using the NAC or the microsegmentation module itself. And the threat management module, which monitors baselines and even monitors. We also do layer 7 protocol, set up layer 7 protocol controls as well, which allows application level monitoring as well. If somebody is trying to change a configuration or change any settings, we are able to detect that early. And that also is something that we baseline as part of our rule or heuristic engine, and even our anomaly classifiers. And if there are any deviations, we will be able to detect that also as part of the IDS. So we have different ways. So we follow the MITRE ATT&CK framework, both enterprise and ICS. And for our DECA interception, we follow the MITRE Engage. So the entire platform with the dashboard is built using MITRE and can detect different known threats and unknown threats using the detection mechanism that we have built. We have tested our system and we have almost 100% detection for initial access and lateral movement. Initial access as part of the intrusion detection solution and lateral movement as part of the microsegmentation solution. So when both are put together, we are able to detect all the, and we have all the sub steps mapped as well, not only the tactics and the techniques, but also we have mapped the sub steps that the attacker might take. We have a repository of 75,000 plus known threat types which can impact an OT environment. So we use that as our database to detect known threats, and on top of that we layer the heuristics and the anomaly detection layer as well. And we have the Sectrio SOC and a lab. So the lab is spread out in different countries around the world. It's an OT and IoT specific lab, which we have set up to detect 0-day vulnerabilities. We work with different OEMs who provide their assets, and there are white hat hackers who break those assets to find out 0-day vulnerabilities as well. And the same lab is also used to collect threat intelligence, and the threat intelligence is what we use in our intrusion detection solution. So with all of this, we have a very good architecture built within our SOC, where we are able to ingest event log sources. We're able to ingest PCAPs into the edge tech appliance, and the edge tech appliance can work really well with the NAC and the Sectrio hub, which helps with event aggregation. It can help with enrichment of the data that is collected, automation of threat remediation, and also um, give the optimal incident response to the SOC team doing L1, L2, or the L3 team, which is sitting within your OT infrastructure to take the right actions when there is a specific type of attack. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. I'm open to any questions or comments or any clarifications that you had on the entire microsegmentation and the zero trust architecture that we can build using the different solution modules of Sectrio.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sharad.
Mm-hmm.
As always, a very insightful session. And thank you for taking us through the whole journey of microsegmentation. And I can see that the questions have been pouring in from all channels, actually. Let me start. Sharad, you want to take a break? Want to drink? Take a sip
Yeah,
of
I'll just get some water.
something?
Yeah, but you can
Go
read out.
ahead, go ahead. Perfect, Sharad. So let me just take this one up. Does okay, that's the second one. Yeah. So what, in your opinion, is the biggest hurdle for enterprises to adopt microsegmentation? Are there any budgetary implications to be considered while realigning your network architecture? This is from Teresa. Yeah, sure. That's the question.
Okay. So microsegmentation, it's a thoughtful solution that you have to put in, right? Like, it's not just a product that you're putting in, but also a lot of thought has to be put in on how are you going to segment the network, how are you going to layer um, the network in such a way that the attackers cannot get in from one zone to another. And a lot of homework needs to be done before coming up with the micro segmentation strategy. So one is the solution, one is the budgetary implication for the product or the solution that you're going to put in place. But the homework that you're going to do before that, right? You will have to have the complete network architecture fully transparent, right? You need to have a solution or a product which is building near real time network topology, or building a near real time um, network asset list. So, and then you need to have a score for your vulnerabilities, and you need to have what are the assets which need to go into specific zones. You need to decide the policy, and the microsegmentation solution just allows you to implement these policies. So from a budgetary perspective, there's a lot of budget that needs to be spent in the uh, program that, or the success points that you need to achieve before implementing the micro segmentation solution. And another thing is, you can have this whole segmentation strategy in layers. First of all, you need to segment the network you into zones using maybe already existing firewalls, and then you add an additional layer which not only um, does the physical segregation but also does the virtual zoning or virtual networking that can be done using the microsegmentation solution.
Perfect. Thanks, Teresa, and thanks, Sharon.
Mhm.
The second question I see here is, does microsegmentation create any lag in productivity, especially when you're working towards integrating IDS, NAC, and remote access security in an ICS environment? This has been asked by Marat. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry about
Okay.
any wrong pronunciation. Yeah, sorry. Share it over to you.
So, as two things, right? One is we are using trunk port, and we are making sure that we do enough like testing in a sandboxed environment, taking into consideration the OEM assets and the properties, the protocols that are being used, all of that, and how the command and control, or the NAC module, which is part of the microsegmentation, implementing that command and control to to override certain communication patterns so that attackers cannot get in. All this is tested well. It's zero impact to the existing infrastructure, and uh, obviously this there would be a question where will OEMs accept it? Yes, there have been customers of ours who are working with some of the top OEMs who have adopted this microsegmentation strategy using Sectrio microsegmentation. So it's a proven solution, and it does really change the way, like, all this while segmentation was using firewall, but using the solution you can get even deeper into the OT network, and set up very specific policies and meet all the requirements, regulatory requirements, or even compliance requirements, all of that using the microsegmentation solution.
Perfect. Thanks, Sharad. I think you have partially answered the next question, in fact, which is about Sectrio's microsegmentation offering having any clear advantages over competition. This is something Nidhi wants to.
Yeah. So just to answer the question, right? Again, in the interest of time, I would be, Nidhi, I'll be happy to get into a deep dive session where I can compare it with other popular solutions in the industry, right? But just to give you a few examples, we're just not having a policy control screen and having a map where you have assets and users, or assets and policies in a grid and assigning them. But we're doing one level deeper, where we can completely obfuscate the type of communication that is happening between zones, right? Like, so it's the black box when an attacker is trying to access. He would no way know that what are the assets which are part of a zone which is below our NAC or the micro segmentation solution. So it completely blinds out whatever assets are there, not allowing the attacker to know what are the specific make and model or asset properties that a specific asset has in the OT environment. But I can get into deeper discussion on clear advantages of Secreo's microsegmentation solution.
Yeah, thank you, Sharad. I think that does require a bit of deep dive, especially if Nidhi has got certain vendors in mind when she's talking about comparing us. Obviously,
Yeah, yeah.
it can't be compared with everybody out there because a lot of the solutions are not as mature as what we are offering because of the depth and features and the capabilities. So, Nidhi, as you heard Sharad say, we will need to do a deep dive on that. Please do feel free to reach out to us. And for those of you who are asking for the presentation, please share your email address over chat. It is confidential, so as in the presentation is not confidential, but your email address will be treated with absolute confidentiality, and we'll be mailing Sharad's deck of today to you, so you don't have to worry about that. So quickly, Sharad, in the interest of time, let me take up another question, which is
Mhm.
from Sushil. Sushil is asking, can I integrate with SIM?
Yes, yes. So we have out of the box integration available, and integration is available with popular SIM solutions like QRadar or Logarithm, Splunk. We have syslog forwarders as well. So any SIM solutions for which we do not have out of the box integration, we can provide syslog LEF or CEF forwarders, which can be integrated with the same.
Perfect, Sharad. Let me just check the console once again. I think we have a couple of questions here. What is this is from NV. What is the difference between microsegmentation and segmentation in terms of OT? Sharad, that's what
Okay.
he.
So if we take in one of the slides, I showed the whole the pipeline network, right? So let me take that as an example. So say the pipeline is distributed in two ways. One is you have segregation between SCADA, SCADA OT and non-SCADA OT, and you have segregation geographically as well. So you have the compressor stations which are distributed in different locations. You have connecting wall stations or connecting metering stations to that compressor station. So if we take that scenario, right, you can have firewalls which are set up in the IT DMZ. You can have firewall that is set up in the OT DMZ, and then you can have firewalls which are set up at each, say, compressor station, or um, you can make sure that any communication which is happening through the from your SCADA to non-SCADA OT environment is also monitored. So that is one level of segmentation that you can achieve, where you can have ACL setup, you can have uh, like you can use the next generation firewalls that are already in the market, or use OT specific firewalls as well. Going one level deeper, right, where you have specific applications for compressors or pumps. You have specific applications for running the for metering, or you have specific applications, Windows applications, which are historian applications, which are uh, sending back data to SCADA. So you will need one more layer where this physical network that you have built is segregated into micro zones, and you can have all the like I was mentioning, all the RTUs as part of the specific zone, and you can set up a policy in such a way that you allow only specific access to that zone which has all the RTUs are put in. And this RTU need not be part of one compressor station, right? You can have all the RTUs which are part of different compressor stations in built into one virtual zone. And you can have also IDS. On the IDS you can set up specific rules or heuristics, or even anomaly classifiers set up in such a way that if there is any kind of flooding attacks which are targeting the RTUs, or if there is any spoofing attacks which are targeting these RTUs, it can be um, secured in a better manner. So this is what one level deeper micro segmentation does, where you're building these secure zones, putting specific crown jewels as part of these secure zones, and setting up the conduits between zone to zone communication.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharath. And I guess we just run out of time. And thanks once again for taking us through the microsegmentation and zero trust journey. I think the audience has a lot more, has obtained a lot more insights to sort of start, working in the direction of microsegmentation and zero trust as well. Thank you, audience. A lot of
Right,
questions. I know.
just
Sorry.
before we end, right? Like I was also thinking that we can do a follow-up session wherein we can in maybe in the next month we can host a follow-up webinar as part two, as a continuation of this webinar series.
That's a fantastic idea, Sharad. I think Chinna will have to approve that for us. You and I won't be able to take that call.
Yeah.
So, Chinna, if you are
That's
okay with
really
it.
great idea. Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
that definitely.
Yeah.
Perfect, Chinna. Thanks for that. And thanks for that idea, Sharad. And thanks to everyone who joined us today, more importantly. And thanks for all those wonderful questions you've asked. We just run out of time. I've made a note of all the questions. We'll be getting back to all of you. And those of you who have requested the decks, please watch your email IDs. We'll be shipping them over to you in the next 24 hours. So thanks once again. Thanks for that wonderful session, Sharad. Thank you, Chinna, for putting this whole thing together and for coming up with this great topic. So as Sharad and you agreed and all of us agreed, we'll be having a follow-up session. So please watch out for that as well, audience. So once again, thanks, and hope to see you soon with a new topic very soon. Thanks once again, everyone. Have a great day.